Hi everyone, it's your intrepid host of YouTube Secrets of Silicon Valley, Bradley Naranch. It's 9:15 on Wednesday, 2 days before Earth Day 2022. I'm 1.17 miles away from my Kings Mountain cottage in Woodside, California, which is in San Mateo County in the great Bay Republican state of California, named after a great mythological Queen Khalifa. I'm here in Purissima Creek Redwoods Open Space Preserve, demonstrating the backward hiking technique that I'm going to be using on Earth Day 2022 to raise money for local land preservation and environmental protection causes, including the organization Mid-Peninsula Regional Open Space Preserve that protects this particular jewel of the Santa Cruz Mountains. I probably am the first person ever on the history of YouTube to walk backwards, hike backwards, while telling you about the last great book that I read, which was last night using Project Gutenberg, projectgutenberg.org. It's Franz Kafka's The Trial, Der Prozess. It's an unfinished novel. He started it in August of 1914, which, as many of you will know, was when the First World War started, the Great War, as it was called, one of the most terrible and senseless human conflicts in world history. Although join the club, there have been others, and there's one going on right now in the Ukraine. Kafka's a fascinating individual. He's buried actually in the New Jewish Seminary in Prague, a place where my wife and I first had our first date, actually, way back in the day. Here's a nice view, if you can see. My favorite spot in the world, Half Moon Bay, Pillar Point Harbor. It's gorgeous. Well, eventually you're going to see the summit of Montar Mountain, where this Friday morning, right at the parking area off Highway 1, where Montar Beach is, I'm going to be meeting all of my friends who are going to be joining me. And that's going to include Jeff Bezos, founder of not just Amazon, but Blue Origin. I'm also going to be there with Phil Knight, who's really done a lot for American fitness and is one of the great entrepreneurs in this country. If you doubt it, read his book, Shoe Dog, something like that. Phil, it's definitely a good book. Not the good book, but a good book. I have also invited Gavin Newsom, so I'm pretty sure he's coming. He loves California, and he loves the same cause as I do. And I did invite Arnold Schwarzenegger. I haven't gotten any confirmation from him if he doesn't show up. It just proves that he and his party maybe need a bit of a wake-up call and maybe need some new leadership. So Arnie, you don't show up, pretty much the Republican Party is toast in the midterms as well as in the next election, 2024, which will be the first presidential election where the results of the 2020 census will be used. And that's significant because our country has changed since 2010. We're a much more diverse, multicultural, inclusive place. That includes individuals like me who don't identify as either male or female. I identify myself as something that's called 2S, Two-Spirit. You can look it up. It's a Native American concept, but you can really find it all over the world. It's people who feel they have a little bit of male energy and female energy inside of them. And I think that's exactly what a lot of us feel like inside. So when I come out here, I just feel like I'm communing with nature. I'm walking down a fairly steep gradient at the moment. A little Douglas fir tree root there. What's cool about walking backwards is you don't actually see what's behind you. You have to kind of sense it. And this type of hiking, it's not just good for your body. It's good for your mind. It's good for your brain. There is a concept called neuroplasticity, which is that our brains are not fixed at childbirth. Through a combination of diet, exercise, mental practices, and other things, you can actually change your brain, improve your brain. And honestly, what I'm doing right now is training some of those motor skills that we tend to lose when we leave childhood behind and start working in offices and sitting in front of screens all the time. This is fairly rough terrain, as you can tell. It is a pretty wild place. And I think I'm using my brain, my peripheral vision and extraperipheral vision, basically to sense what's going on here. And it's really great. There are a lot of studies that show that that childhood brain development is affected when you don't spend enough time walking on uneven surfaces. Because when you walk on an uneven surface, lots of other parts of your brain light up and you become simply a better human being. And physical fitness is the heart of mental fitness, and it's how we get in touch with our spiritual core. That's really the holy triangle, I guess, of human existence for people like me, mind, body, and spirit. You don't have to be a member of a specific religious group to be in touch with your spiritual side. But getting back to Kafka. Kafka's one of the great writers of all time. He was a troubled soul. He died of tuberculosis in a sanatorium in Austria in 1924, I believe. He was raised by Ashkenazi parents, really hardworking folks. His mom and his dad worked more than 12 hours a day, probably almost as long as Elon Musk is working right now. Kafka could speak Yiddish. He could speak German. He could speak French. He could read the classics, both Greek and Latin, and he read a lot of great books. He was a chemistry major and then switched his major to law, like a lot of people do, right? And he got a job, a really dead-end job, working for an insurance company that he hated. He worked from 8 in the morning until 6 in the evening, about 10 hours a day, doing something that he clearly did not like. But when he had time, he wrote. He wrote prodigiously. Much of what he wrote we no longer have because he had it burned. He was a bit of a perfectionist. I can relate. So I got to keep walking backwards. I'll just show you this great view here. That's Montara Mountain, the summit that we're going to hike to on Friday. Kafka, had he been on social media, everything he would have written would have stayed in the cloud. And I actually think we've lost a lot. Supposedly about 80%, maybe even 90% of what Kafka wrote was burned. The rest is pretty amazing, but a lot of it is unfinished. The trial's like that. A lot of people think that the trial is either an expression of an epiphany, a revelation that Kafka had, or it's a sign of a schizophrenic mind. And there's a lot of evidence to suggest that Kafka, after his tuberculosis diagnosis, after his well-known failure to find a loving life partner, he never married, sought out love in all the wrong places, was supposedly interested in pornography and prostitution, not themselves problems, but Kafka struggled. He really did. And he didn't finish the process, the trial, which is a beautiful book. I'm not going to give too much away, but the main character does get knifed in the end, knifed in the heart, not in the back. We don't really know if that's how Kafka intended it because he died before the book was published. A good friend of his by the name of Max Brod actually edited it. So we don't really know if Kafka intended Franz K. to die in the end or not. And the nice thing about books like that is, whatever the author intended, that's not how you necessarily have to interpret the story, right? For me, Franz K., he's like a Christ-like figure. He's amazing. He knows he's innocent. He's faced with a kind of a world that is endlessly confusing to him. But he doesn't care. He just goes about his business as usual. And he's not afraid to die. He's not afraid to say what he thinks. He's not afraid to face the truth. And we are a lot of hard truths that we in this world have to face right now. Not just wars, ongoing poverty, inadequate access to the internet for many, many people in the world, including inadequate access to basic necessities like food and water. In my opinion, internet access should be another one of those necessities. We have a lot of parts of the world where people don't have their own country. Armenia, for example, the Basque province in northern Spain, Catalonia, the people of Northern Ireland, for example, also kind of suffer under the legacy of empire in the 19th century, which I know quite a bit about. I've written about and studied imperialism for quite a long time. I've taught about the Holocaust. I've studied Charles Darwin. That's just what we do. So if I could somehow bring Kafka back, I'd take him out here. I bet it would help with his tuberculosis. Obviously, we have some medicine that we could use to treat a guy like that, and he wouldn't have had to die at age 40, and he wouldn't be buried in a grave in Prague. He'd be with us right now. In a way, he sort of is. You can just go onto Project Gutenberg, and you can read Kafka's work. If any of you are suffering from mental illness, you can probably relate to what he said. If any of you are suffering from bipolar disorder, you know what? Why don't you go and check out Mark Ruffalo's movie, Infinitely Polar Bear? It's a great story. You want to know what it's like to grow up with a father with mental illness? Why don't you check out I Am Sam with the great actor Sean Penn? And you want to do something to help the earth? Spread the word about my Earth Day 2022 backward hiking challenge to the summit of Montara Mountain. It's a fantastic place. It has a storied history, somewhat controversial history in California, actually. It's where the Gaspar de Portola expedition, which was a Spanish expedition that started from Monterey, went up the coast exploring things. This was land that was occupied by the Ohlone, by the Esalen, by Native American cultures for millennia, probably longer. We don't really know. And they probably took their horses up to the top of Montara. It's a pretty high mountain. It's around 1,800 feet elevation above sea level. And that's when they saw San Francisco Bay. And that's pretty much where the story of the colonization of California, which eventually ends up with Silicon Valley, takes place. You may be wondering what this camera is. It's not watching me. It's watching for mountain lions. It's sponsored by the FelideFund.org, conservation fund. Mountain lions used to be indigenous to much of the United States. Now they only exist in certain areas. They're an apex predator. They're important for the ecosystem. And here in the Santa Cruz Mountains, there are a lot of organizations, including the University of California at Santa Cruz and Save the Mountain Lion Foundations, that are doing a lot to restore these great animals. I once actually saw a mother mountain lion and two of her cubs while hiking here in Purísima. So a number of years ago. And it was an amazing experience. If any of you have ever had that experience, seeing a mountain lion in the wild, it's really unforgettable. It is kind of like an epiphany. And I'd like more people, more visitors to this country, more citizens of this country to have that experience with nature. Everybody knows who Penn State is. They know their mascot is the Nittany Lion. But the state of Pennsylvania, to the best of my knowledge, doesn't have any mountain lions anymore. It's a bit of a shame, in my opinion, and I think in the opinion of lots of you. I'm backward hiking back up to the top here to give you a sense of what it's like. This is great fitness. I'm up to 123 beats per minute. This is my Apple Watch. I use it to track biometrics so I can see how I'm doing. I'm not listening to music right now because I'm obviously talking to you, but I use Amazon Music, I use Spotify, I use Pandora, I use YouTube Music, and I use Apple Music. I think they're all really great. They curate their music playlists really well. I don't really feel you have to choose between one or the other. Here I am making my way back up. It's a fairly steep gradient, but when you hike backwards, it doesn't feel that way. It's actually kind of cool. Yeah, so this is what we're going to do at Montara. So Phil, Jeff, you want to see what it's like? This is what we're going to do. We're going to skip back down naturally. We're going to have a great time at Montara at the beach at the end. I did invite Ellen DeGeneres and Jennifer Gardner because we kind of need a little bit more of a diverse group to join us. Can't be all guys and two S's like me. And Leonardo Dicaprio, I asked him, I think on Instagram, if he wanted to come and join us too. Some of you probably know Leo from the movies, one of America's fantastic actors. He's also an amazing environmentalist, and he does a lot to kind of elevate the discussion about the environment in this world. So Leo, you can join us as well. I'd really like that. I spend a lot of time on Instagram now and Twitter, so I haven't actually formally invited them, but if Elon Musk or Mark Zuckerberg want to come, they're pretty busy. But it would be so cool if they join us this Friday. I think we're going to start at 7:17 in the morning from Montara Beach. There's a parking area off of Highway 1. And then we're going to cross Highway 1. We're going to start our hike. It'll take us about 90 minutes, maybe 2 hours to get to the top. Weather is supposed to be pretty good. There's the mountain. Hope you like it, guys. And then when we get to the top, we're going to open some California wine and celebrate. Everybody's going to bring a bottle. Hopefully this will be live broadcast on Twitter as well as Instagram, maybe on Amazon as well, really anywhere. And we're going to raise money. We're all going to collect money and support organizations that protect areas like this. And that does include the California State Park System. That also includes the U.S. Department of Agriculture as well as the Department of Interior. Some of you may know that in this country, the Department of Agriculture is in charge of our national forests and our wilderness areas, but the Department of the Interior is in charge of our national parks. It's a bit of a bureaucratic thing. Probably we could have done a better job with it. But, you know, our founding forest fathers like Gifford Pinchot and Teddy Roosevelt, they saw this land as a resource and they wanted it to be harvested. They've also done a lot, unfortunately, to prevent natural wildfires from taking care of our forests and keeping them healthy, because they thought that every tree that burned was money that was lost in the bank. And the truth is, folks, we don't lack funds in this country. According to some of my friends in Silicon Valley who work for a group called tie.org, TIE.org, there are trillions of dollars of uninvested capital just looking for places to go. That's trillions with the T, folks. That's money that our largest banks and funds are looking to invest somewhere. So I'd say invest in America, invest in the world, invest in exploration of space, give us something to believe in, give us political leaders to believe in, give us politicians who look and talk and feel and bleed and cry like us. And let's help make America beautiful again. America the beautiful. You know, Donald Trump talked about making America great again, and a lot of people understood what he was talking about, including people in my home state of West Virginia. I am a proud Appalachian American. I believe it's a very, very important part of our country, and I believe it's been abused by just about everyone, including the coal industry, including the senator from my state, James Manchin, who is a bit of a problem right now in Congress. So Senator Manchin, former governor, I, as a member of the Golden Horseshoe Society, you know what that is, I'm telling you right now, if you continue to block the Green New Bill, I will personally campaign against you in my home state of West Virginia whenever you come up for election again. And I will make your life a living hell, figuratively speaking, until you come and see the light of day. I'll also tell this to Mitch McConnell. You, sir, supposedly love America. Well, guess what? Your state is suffering and you need new jobs in there, and coal's not going to be with us forever. So Mitch, I can be your best friend or I can be your worst enemy. I'd suggest that we be friends. We have a lot in common, you and I. We're deeply religious people. We care about this country. And I'm not a partisan. I'm an independent. I'm an American. I'm an Appalachian American. I'm a Golden Stater at heart. I've been living here continuously since 2008. I've taught at the College of William and Mary. I've taught at Loyola University in Maryland. I was a graduate of Williams College in Western Massachusetts. I was a graduate student at Johns Hopkins, one of the great Quaker-founded institutions in this country. You know something about racism and poverty and distribution of wealth. I've also lived and taught in the great state of Montana, in Missoula actually. Well, it was the last job I had in academia before I gave up teaching, because honestly, I was jaded with American higher education. I think it's got a lot of problems. I think a lot of American sons and daughters go into debt, getting a college degree, and they end up getting minimum wage jobs working at Wendy's. And that's just not right. That's a waste of our most precious human resource in this country, which are our citizens, particularly young citizens. These are the type of people who may be watching this YouTube video and wondering if there are politicians and political leaders and social influencers who get their struggle. And I got to tell you, as a Hopkins PhD who earns $20 an hour plus tips, pouring wine for people in Silicon Valley who make a lot more than that, I feel your pain. I get what you're talking about. You want me to run for political office? I will. I got time on my hands. I got a lot of passion for this country. And I have a lot of good ideas, and I know how to listen. So if anyone in the White House is listening to this, which it's quite possible you are, understand. People like me want to help. We really do. We'll walk backward. We'll walk backward for this country. We'll do what it takes because we're not quitters. America is a land of opportunity. It always has been. And under my watch and your watch, my Apple Watch, it will continue to be so. Up to 145 beats per minute here. I've almost reached the top again. This is a slightly longer YouTube video, but I think it contains a lot of information that you'll need to decide when and if this country is ready to make a change, and what type of people are going to be those change makers who are going to lead us into a brighter and better future, not just for the United States, but for Mexico, for Canada, for South America, for Central America, for Sub-Saharan Africa, for the Middle East, for Europe, for South Asia, for East Asia, for the Pacific, for Australia, for New Zealand, for indigenous peoples all around the world who still struggle to get recognition for what they've done. This is for all of you. You inspire me. You make me work harder. You make me a better person. You make me wake up every morning with my head high. And you can't put a price on that. Just got a little bit more to go. Hopefully my iPhone won't run out of juice. Oh, here I am. I've reached the summit. I've reached the top. There's nowhere further I can go. I don't think there's anything more I can say to convince you folks. I'm the way, the truth, and the light. Believe in me, because I already believe in you. Bradley out.